So I got a really good comment in response to some of my thoughts on Christian agnosticism recently, and I really appreciate it. So I just wanted to address those. So the gist of the comment basically was the idea of Christian agnosticism doesn't really take into account the different sorts of knowledge and how we obtain that knowledge. So the proposed model in this response was that there's kind of like three tiers of what we know, sort of the ontological unknowable, the contextual unknowable, and the inferable. And in these kind of three tiers, it was suggested that the ontological unknowable is somewhere where God would reside. The contextual unknowable would be something like we can't observe it, but it is something scientific that we can infer from secondary observation, for example. And then the inferable is just everything that we do know and observe in the world. Now, I don't know if this model would break down in as if we were to pursue it deeper, but we'll just go with it. And I think it's reasonable enough. And so what I would say, and this is just the first part of the comment, by the way, but what I would want to say to this first part is that it does indeed take into account Christian agnosticism, the difference between what we would call ontologically unknowable and the inferable, I think. And even just in the statement of the model, it's exactly what I was referring to, basically. Just the idea that it's called ontologically unknowable is the fact that we cannot know it. Now, the idea here, though, was that God is what resides in that ontologically unknowable space, but we can infer what we know about God from the fruits of what happens as a response to or a result of the existence of God. And so I think the problem with this is that it kind of makes an assumption here. It sort of begs the question, really, in a couple of ways. One is that it assumes that God is that thing that is in this ontologically unknowable space. Now, from the perspective of a skeptic or just a skeptical approach, the reality, again, is that we cannot know. We do not know what is in that ontological space, or if there is anything at all, or maybe something different from what we think of as the conventional idea of of theism, of a God. And so I think to say that we can infer what is in that unknowable ontological space, and we can see that God exists in it because of whatever things are happening in the world, that's sort of an assumption that those things are coming from this thing that we perceive as God. But the precise agnostic problem is that we can't know that because we don't know if these things, these fruits, are coming from something else. And that's where a lot of philosophy has gotten us to today. The idea that, as we go along in history and we observe the world around us more and more, we can kind of see less and less reason for us to surmise that it's some godlike being that is the cause of these fruits. And I've talked a little bit about that in other videos, in reference to the ontological argument, the moral argument, and the teleological argument, etc. But the point being is there's an assumption here being made. And so this is sort of circular logic because it essentially assumes that what is in this ontological space, first of all, that there is something in it, and then also that it is this God. Now, I think that's a problematic assumption, and the precise point of agnosticism is that we can't make that assumption. So, as far as that's concerned, well, I think what we need is an example. So the second part of the comment, this response that I got, had to do with the title, Christian agnostic, and I think what we need here is an example. So specifically, this gets into the person of Jesus. And so this is something that I will talk about a little bit more in a different video.